Hello and welcome to How to Invest. In today's video, I'm going to be covering the latest Q1 earnings from Shift4. I currently have a $85,000 portfolio as the date of this recording, and this is my fourth largest position, I believe, in my portfolio. So I'm just going to be going over the most recent shareholder letter. I'm going to be talking about debt, M&A, and kind of using Shift4 has a case study for understanding debt and M&A when you're looking at companies and underwriting your own investments as kind of a case study for us to learn from. And then I'm going to go over our modeling and give a 5-year bear, base, and bull case price target for each one of those scenarios.
We are not registered investment advisors. You are solely responsible for your own investments. We implore everyone to underwrite their own investments. If you don't have time to, we recommend not watching our channel. We may hold positions in securities we discuss. Our opinions are subject to change, and this video reflects our opinions only at the time of recording. This video is not financial advice and is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Starting with just going over the shareholder letter and talking about our first topic of debt in a second. So going over the Q1 results actual, really solid quarter. The main thing we are modeling is this growth revenue less network fees grew 49% year over year. A lot of this again is because of the recent Global Blue acquisition, and then they reiterated their full year guidance of 26 to 31% growth, and then they kind of broke out by regions. Really strong growth here. Worldwide, so much more room for them to expand worldwide. Really strong core growth in the Americas. I think this company could be a teens grower even after they kind of go through their 2028 guidance of 30% growth. They guided in their big shareholder kind of meeting in 2025, I believe. They basically said we're going to grow at 30% through 2028. So we'll look at that a bit more in the modeling. But I think even after they complete that, they'll be growing in double digits for a really long time to come still. This is a really solid company. One of the main ways that they grow is through M&A though, and that causes them to take on some debt. So I do want to come down here and talk about debt because it did not move the direction I wanted to. Gross leverage did decrease, but net leverage actually increased, and I believe this is above their kind of own internal guideline. It isn't exactly against it. So their internal guideline is to not remain at 3.75 leverage on a sustained basis. So they did go above that 3.75 net leverage this quarter. So this is again something I'm going to be watching over the long term of this company. It doesn't necessarily destroy the thesis. They've still been able to use leverage as a really effective way to grow. They're free cash flow positive, so they're paying all their debt just fine. But this is something I definitely would want to see continue to trend down. Their long-term trend over the history of the company is downward, but I would like to see this go down because talking about debt, this is one of the biggest risks any company faces. This is really the only way that a company can truly go bankrupt if it's has a business model that actually works and generates cash flow. The only way you can really get into trouble is with debt. You maybe have a short-term downtrend in your business. You aren't generating as much free cash flow anymore, and then all of a sudden that debt comes and bites you in the butt. So this is definitely something that I'm a little bit concerned about. I didn't love to see that number ticked up this quarter, but I do trust management, which comes back into this, trusting management as a core part of any investment thesis is trusting their management and their ability to execute. They have been higher net leverage than this before, back here Q3 2022. They had higher net leverage and they were able to bring it down. So I do believe in their ability to manage their leverage with good stewardship and do it wisely where it's not going to put the business at risk, but they do have a negative net asset value for sure after you back out goodwill and stuff. So it is important to keep debt in mind when you're investing in a company. Because of the debt, I would never make this one of my largest positions by any means, just because that does always add that risk, right? So companies that I really love have really low debt, have more assets than debt, are generating lots of free cash flow and are consistently lowering the amount of leverage they have. So that is my biggest concern still, but it is part of the leverage is what fuels their M&A strategy, which is the second thing I want to talk about. And understanding M&A. And in terms of, kind of M&A and a proven track record of allocating capital well, they kind of re-highlight their own internal kind of algorithm for M&A. It's for customer acquisition, product investment, And they also do share repurchases, and they've done a really good job of that. They've actually bought back 20% of their outstanding shares since their IPO in 2020. But yeah, so when M&A can be really bad is when you're acquiring a company that is of a similar size of the company that is acquiring. So it's better to acquire smaller companies. So that's one thing that Shift4 does well. Most recently, they did acquire their largest kind of company that they've ever acquired in their history, which was Global Blue. But they have a really good track record of one, acquiring companies within their competency. So back in the I think the 80s and 90s, there was this trend of these conglomerates, these massive corporations, and their whole kind of growth algorithm was just to buy businesses left and right, any kind of business. It didn't matter if the business they were buying had anything to do with the rest of their businesses. So they were buying outside of their core competency, where Shift4 buys within their core competency, and they buy products that directly kind of integrate with their core product. They highlight here that they acquire and then they are able to cross sell the new kind of products from their acquisition, and it increases average revenue per user through kind of buying these other products and customers. They buy a customer and then they cross sell their existing suite of products. They buy a product and then they cross sell that new product to their existing customers. So this is a really good strategy for growth when done right, and I think Shift4 has a track record of doing this kind of M&A correctly. So that's really, really important. I like using Shift4 as kind of a case study for M&A because it can be done really wrong, which is when you're buying, massive, companies that are, about the same size as you. You're not integrating it in, you have two sales teams and you have two HRs. That's another thing Shift4 does. They cut redundancy. So they have one HR, one sales team, and then that same sales team sells all the new products. They handle all of the new customers. They don't keep all of this redundancy. So that's another thing that Shift4 does really good. When they buy, you can do M&A, and then you can get really bloated as a company if you don't consistently cut fat. And have, don't, you should just start buying a bunch of companies and then by the end of it, you have 6 sales departments. That's not a good way to, that's how you get really bloated as an organization. So Shift4 has a good track record of effective M&A. So if you really want to understand what good M&A from a company looks like, definitely do more research on Shift4. They're a really good example of how to do M&A well. So yes, the leverage concerns me. I have trust in management because they have a really good track record of doing M&A well, and working through periods of high leverage. So I would like to start to see this tick down. I was hoping it would tick down this quarter already, but I'm going to continue to watch that because again, debt is a serious risk when you're talking about a company, because that is really one of the biggest culprits for bankruptcy, and bankruptcy is really the only way your investment actually can go to zero, is that company closes and now is worth nothing. So really, really important to keep in mind. Those are the main things I wanted to highlight from Shift4. This is a really incredible company. I want to go over the modeling really quick. The bear case, this would be really, really bad. This would be even below their low end of, let me find it again. So yeah, their full year guidance is 26 to 31%. So this is even below the low end. So this would be terrible for Shift4 to only grow at 18% for the next 3 years, slowing down to 14%. They currently have a net margin of about 4%. So in the bear case, they only get to a 7%. Software payments processing company like this could easily get to 10, 15% in the long term. And then a pretty low PE of 29 for a company growing pretty fast. That would be pretty bad. Let's go over the base case really quick. Sorry. They grow at 30%. And again, this is based off of the, shareholder or, annual meeting where they gave guidance where this is the most likely scenario. We're going to go at 30% through 2028. So in our base case, they achieve that. So even in a quarter where they grow total revenue less network fees by 49%, I think my base case, I'm not going to change it. Their full year guidance is still that 30% range. And this is an average. So part of the way they're going to grow 30% on average is by doing M&A. So some quarters, when they add that new revenue from their new company they acquired, there's going to be a huge jump up year over year. But then the average is still going to look like, around 30% compounding. So In this scenario, they grow their net margin from that 4% to 10% by 2030 and are trading at a 28 PE. I think that's actually lower than the bear case. So I should actually maybe, yeah, it is, tick that up a little bit. We could probably say something trading more like a 32 PE if they're growing, pretty strong, double digits. They could definitely be trading at a bit of a premium. Yeah, we're saying they're growing at 18% year over year in 2030. So I think a 32 PE would be totally fair in 2030 for it to be trading at. And then lastly, let's get the bull case. They grow a little bit faster than guidance, 30%, and then they actually grow another year, 2029, also at 30% before starting to slow down in 2030 to 28%. And in the bull case, they're getting to a 12% net margin by 2030 and trading at a 35 PE. So let's go look at it in the chart real quick. In the base case, it is with ticking that net margin or the PE multiple up, it went from a 5.8x to a 6.6x. So I need to actually recalculate the base case. With the base case 6.6x by 2030, again, this is directional. This is not actually at all what's going to happen in reality. You always have short-term voting. When you get to 2030, the market may be excited or bearish in the short term around Shift4. This is modeling the fundamentals, so price can be completely dislocated from this, and then there can be so many unforeseen circumstances. So this is just going to give me a directional idea. So 6.6x would mean a $280 stock price in 2030. In the bear case, we'll do that before we go to bull case, a 2.5x in that 18% growth scenario, which would be terrible and only getting to a 7% net margin. That would be a $106 stock price target. And then in the bull case, you can see here 11.2x by 2030, and that would be a price target of 475 in the bull case. That's where they grow at more than 30%, that high or 33, 32%, and then continue to grow around 30% all the way through 2030 and getting to I think it was a 10% net margin. So that would be this scenario where you get to a 475. And again, this is just to teach you, why modeling is important. Now I can look at the relative attractiveness of this investment, and I'm going to keep in mind the qualitatives like that debt. That debt's always going to be in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about position sizing. Now, Hims and Lemonade have much, much better balance sheet positions. So I am much more happy having those be larger positions, even if the numbers maybe aren't as good in terms of the modeling, because that debt risk is just not on the table. So, you pair those qualitatives with the quantitatives like the modeling, and that allows you to position size based on real risks that exist in the company. And then you can compare worst case scenario. So like in a worst case scenario, maybe I don't want to own something like a honest company if it's going to be a 0.8 even in the worst case scenario. I want something in the worst case scenario, maybe more like Hims, where it's still 3x's, almost a 30% compounder, even if my worst case scenario plays out. And that can also play into, which investments I want to play out. And another great example is like space, right? So this is Virgin Galactic. In the worst case scenario, goes bankrupt because, they have zero revenue right now. They haven't proven their business model. They haven't proven there's actually demand for their space flights. But, in the base case and the bull case, it looks like it's really good returns, right? So maybe quantitatively in the base case and bull case, it looks like a pretty good investment. But when I also keep in mind the worst case scenario, the bear case, I really don't want to invest in this company anymore. And then when I know about the qualitatives, it's not founder run, they haven't proven demand for their product yet. All of those things, you put them all together. That's all comes together in your underwriting of an investment. And that's why it's so important to do the research yourself, to know the qualitatives, to listen to the earnings calls, listen to CEO interviews, to track the company's performance and execution over time, to do your own modeling, right? So you can actually have a relative you can compare apples to apples versus being in this very theoretical realm where you're having to compare apples and oranges, which are much more difficult. So by putting an ROI on the different investments, understanding the qualitatives, by doing the research yourself, it allows you to really compare different investment opportunities for yourself. So I wanted to use Shift4 as a case study for better understanding debt and the real kind of risk that poses, and how to understand what a good M&A strategy from a company looks like. And then again, I always want to show you guys how to actually model these companies out. And again, you can do that yourself with the spreadsheet that you can see here in the description. You can get your own version of it. So you can go and it asks you all the qualitative questions yourself, a final buy checklist to understand the story, the competitive landscape, the quality of the product, how that product compares to other companies. All of that kind of stuff is kind of asked to you through the spreadsheet. You fill it out. It has the modeling in there for you to fill out the modeling, and then you can really understand the qualitatives and then compare the quantitatives between companies yourself. So that is in the description if you're interested. I hope you learned a lot about how to invest in this video. Again, we are not financial. This is not financial advice. We're not registered financial advisors. This is not any kind of video trying to say go buy Shift4. Please do not invest in any company based on any one of our videos. This is hopefully just to teach you the principles of investing that we've really learned from greats like Peter Lynch and Warren Buffett. So if you want to continue to go learn on your own, we highly recommend you go read the essays from the shareholder letters from Warren Buffett. Go read books from Peter Lynch. He has a bunch of really great ones. For example, One Up on Wall Street. So that is where we learned the bulk of how to invest from, and we encourage you to go read those yourself as well. So, and hopefully we pack little nuggets from those great investors in these videos using real world case examples, case studies, so that you can get better at investing yourself. So I hope you learned a lot. I hope you were also entertained, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
As a reminder, our investment philosophy is to never invest money we might need for the next several years or that we can't afford to go to zero. Before we buy individual stocks, we always ensure our income exceeds our expenses and that we hold an emergency fund of 3 to 12 months of living expenses. If we didn't have the time to research fundamentals, our strategy would simply be to hold broad index funds. Remember, this video is not financial advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only.